That gangbang stuff not in me. I'm getting some money. Stiglo, aka chasing money. That's my game.
Being dead broke is the root of all evil. When you got this money, you can do a lot with it. When you ain't got no money, you can't do nothing. You thinking of ways to get it. People will rob for this money, kill for this money, steal for this money, scam for this money, script for this money, sell dope and take drugs for this money. But when they ain't got it, they'll come kill you about their money. Nigga set your ass up in the motherfucking jail about this money. Nigga snitch on you about some money. So why we take money so motherfucking lightly? You got the value of dollar. But you gotta understand, it ain't gonna never stay in your pocket. It gonna go from your pocket to his pocket to her motherfucking wallet.
It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. How you gonna eat? How you paying your rent? Where you gonna sleep? You sleeping on the tent? You living on the street? You sleeping on the bench? I'm on the inside with the outside scent. Now I'm on the inside and what outside meant.
So I'm on the inside with the outside scent. Now I'm on the inside and what outside meant.
Cause I don't so dimes, I don't so nicks. Plug with the plug, cause my man so bricks. With the water town with the OT trip. We made a bad steak with the OT flip. I don't so music, sold CDs, sold a bunch of movies, DVDs, the Goodman Plaza. We all made cheese to securities, to call the police. I done posted up at the hot dog cart. All beef dogs with the meat sauce mark. I can bring it back, come again, restart. But now I got a maze for celebrity talk. Old school tab with the mockery sharp. Down to the dawn in the water we sharks. Old school tab with the mockery sharp. We can mark it anywhere in the Moscow art. You can pump blood through my vein like heart. Don't let the bull fly, bull's eye that starts. It's in the parking lot in the car we park. With the music turned up, just how we spark. Rolling up tree with the backwood bark. Pocket full of vapes and they all smart car. Separate day from the light like dark. And we bring green back like the month of March. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. You can put my pay on PayPal. You can put my cash on Cash App. You can put my coin on Bitcoin. Listen, I just want my cash back. I'ma put my pack in that trap, and I'ma give my partner half that. Take the debit card to the register and to the cashier want cash back. You can put my pay on PayPal. You can put my cash on Cash App. You can put my coin on Bitcoin. Listen, I just want my cash back. I'ma put my pack in that trap, and I'ma give my partner half that. Take the debit card to the register and to the cashier want cash back.
You supposed to have more than you show and speak less than you know about this money. Cause once people know about this money, they gonna come get this money. And if you don't give it, they gonna take this money. And if you still in their way about this money, they gonna kill you about this money.
All right, peace to Black African Power. Welcome back to Kofi Piesie TV. This is another edition of Warrior Scholar. This is the 30th guest that we have, Rakeem Shabazz, man. Y'all, please like and share the show. Please like and share the show. If you hadn't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, please. And before we get started, I want to try to define what a warrior scholar, what a warrior is, what a scholar is, and my definition of what a warrior scholar is, and then we'll get definitely into the interview. Again, y'all, please like and share the show. Please like and share the show. Let me share, pull this up real quick. All right. All right, everybody know this is my motto. This is my phrase. I live by this motto. I'll die by this motto. As I learn, we all learn. And a warrior scholar, let me make it bigger where everybody can see it. All right. A warrior, let's define it. A warrior from the northern French warrior, old French warrior, soldier, combative, one who wages war, from warrior, wage war. This is from the etymology dictionary. Warrior, a person engaged in experience in warfare broadly, a person engaged in some struggle, conflict. Scholar, it is a person attends a school or study under a teacher. Pupil, a person who has done advanced study and in a special field. A learned person, a holder of scholarship. Scholar, a person who studied a subject in great detail, especially at a university. This is from the Cambridge Orch Dictionary. Go to the next one. All right. Kofi perspective of a warrior scholar. This is my perspective of what a warrior scholar is. My meaning of warrior scholar is someone who is well studied and wages war against mistrue pseudoisms and willing to stand on the battlefield against institutions and platforms that promote that. A warrior scholar is someone who is on a mission for the truth, for accuracy and sound information. A warrior scholar is one who has discipline, good character, morals, and is willing to fight back against those who use information dangerously. So that is my perspective of what a warrior scholar is. Let me remove this from the studio. All right, all right. So, like I said, we have special guests. I'm excited about this interview. We've been working on putting this in the works for a minute. We're finally able to make it happen, man. Y'all help me welcome brother Rakeem Shabazz to the show. Brother Rakeem, man, welcome to Kofi Piesie TV, brother.
Thank you, man. I definitely appreciate the invite. Definitely a fan of the show and your work, and so it's definitely an honor to be here, brother.
All right, man. For people, man, that might not know who you is, brother, can you kind of briefly introduce yourself, man, before we get into the interview?
For sure, for sure. My name is Rakeem Shabazz. I am a 5%er. I have a platform called Wow's the Dome TV where we interview underground hip hop artists and intellectuals within the Black community. We're here to kind of do the same thing that this show is doing, is to, teach the truth and kill the pseudoisms and, allow our people to move forward in understanding. So,
No doubt, no doubt. All right, man. So I asked man, these first two questions, man, everybody that come on the platform, man, for the Warrior Scholars interview, man, I always ask these same two questions, man. So the first question, man, is name some of your favorite Warrior Scholars.
I would say some of my favorite warrior scholars would be one, Walter Rodney. I feel like that's the first name that came up due to the fact that warrior scholar is somewhat similar to the phrase that he coined, which is guerrilla intellectual, right? And somebody that was a scholar, taught at the University of West Indies, but at the same time went to the hoods and talked to the people and shunned, mainstream academia in the sense for their lack of work and their lack of effort. So Walter Rodney is one of the first ones that came to mind. Obviously, Malcolm. Malcolm, seeing who he was and his transformation through knowledge of self and education. That's something that can be applicable for everybody. There are a lot of our young brothers and sisters who may have succumbed to different situations within the streets or, the classroom. They never felt comfortable there or things of that nature. And Malcolm has shown and proved that example where he's able to transform himself by staying in the library and reading books and becoming active within his community. The more knowledge he got, I would say Dr. Marimba Ani. I gotta have one of the sisters in there. I mean, just off Urugu alone, Her lectures, I used to sit and watch her lectures often. Just a great scholar, a fearless scholar. Uh, Dr. Gerald Horn from the University of Houston, um, Princeton grad, written over 40 books. Some of my favorite work right now. And last but definitely not least, I would say Kwame Ture might be my favorite. I mean, the man speaks for himself. Went to Howard, was involved with SNCC, was involved with the Lowndes County Freedom Organization in Alabama to help, the political situation down there. Um, was a part of the Pantha Party at one time. Then within Nkrumah developed the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So, and just watching his speeches, man, I don't know how you can't get fired up watching his speeches or reading his works, like the book Black Power. Those are all warrior scholars that have been very influential to me.
Man, that's a powerful lineup right there, man. I'm very familiar, man, with all of those people and read some of their literature, as well, man. So man, that was a great lineup, man. I can't even disagree with you, man, on that. And JJ JJ Rogers was one that I actually posted one of his books and with a other list of people who actually changed my life, you know what I'm saying, reading some of their literature, you know what I'm saying, and I'm very familiar with Kwame Ture's Black Power book. I think I read it maybe maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, man. So I'm very familiar, man, with a lot of those books. Yahuru, uh, I hadn't read the entire book on that, man, but I read some of it, man. So yeah, and I'm a big fan of hers as well, man. So yeah, that's a powerful lineup right there, man. And so the second question, man, like I said, man, these are some of the questions that I normally ask everybody that comes on Warrior Scholar, man, is name the last book or the book you are currently reading.
Okay. Well, so as someone who also studies his history, I'm constantly reading something, and I noticed for about the last couple of years that everything that I read was dealing in history, pretty much everything. And I began to realize that when all we do is read history, we are kind of missing out on some of the important literature from our culture and our community that was here to, kind of enlighten people, such as books from, Richard Wright, James Baldwin, Zora Neale Hurston, things of that nature. So I said I'm gonna read more classic Black novels this year, Chinua Achebe as well. And so I read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and it was an interesting book. Just it was about a black girl in the 40s in Ohio that felt like she was ugly, and she was responding to the ugly situation that white supremacy had put her and her family generationally in. And it goes through things that happened to her to help her get this way, things that happened to her parents that helped them to instill that negativity within her. And then it shows the outcome at the end. So for anybody that hasn't read it, I won't spoil it for them. But definitely a powerful book. I know some say that it may have some, due to the fact that a lot of the men in the book were predatory. Some people have issues with it, but you just settle on the best part and take take from it what you can take from it. And so right now, I am reading a book, War on All Puerto Ricans, right? And so it's important for me to read these type of books because it's not just when we talk about Black studies, we're not talking simply about history, right? We're talking about how we see things collectively, our differences, our different liberation struggles. We are also talking about um, political ideologies, things that worked in the past, things that didn't. And so I began to kind of study some of the history of Black Puerto Rico, and it's a very interesting history. This book is not singling out Black Puerto Rico, but it's one of the things that inspired me to get it. Um, Whenever we are talking about liberation and our fights all over the world, there are a lot of people that may think our fight is relegated to America. We have liberation struggles of oppressed people all over the world. Right now, we have places like Hawaii, right, where Native Hawaiians are fighting back against the colonial nature of Americans even being there in the first place, right? But this book, War Against All Puerto Ricans, it just kind of goes through the different liberation struggles, how Puerto Rico became a part of the United States, the fight against that in itself. We're looking at an island that is a territory of America, but does not have the rights that other states within America have. And so in order to familiarize myself with what it means to be liberated in general, right, I have to read and study the liberation struggles of oppressed people all over the world, not just in Africa, not just in America, in the Caribbean, Latin America, because this is all the root of that struggle is one, right?
Yes,
We don't always see things the same, but there is a common enemy and there is a common thing that is oppressing us, which is American imperialism in the West. And so that's what I'm reading now.
man, that's dope, man. You may be want to check that book out as well, man. Are you you read one book at a time, or you read 3 or 4 books at one time?
All right, so that's a good question. I normally read one at a time, but I think I am getting to the point where I may begin to expand and start reading two at a time because it felt like it keeps it fresh, right? It keeps you, because sometimes we can, especially if the book is lengthy and it's a historical book and there's fact after fact after fact after fact, it's probably good to put it down maybe and read something else and get back to that. Because I was thinking about it, I was like, that's what we did in school, right? Whenever we were in high school or if you went to college, you had to read multiple books at a time, right? And so I don't know. I normally read one book at a time, but I think I'll be trying out, reading multiple books this time.
Okay, yeah, I'm. I done started reading one book at a time, but I normally, man, I'll be reading 2 books at one time. I may read a book. Maybe the first couple of days I may, read a book, and then the next couple of days I may pick up the other book, or it may be I might on my mornings I may read one, and then before the book, I'm finna go back to reading 2 books. There's 2 books right now. I'm excited about certain literature, man. And I can't wait to finish one. I'm gonna start reading both at the
Right.
same time. So that's why I asked, because I know some people, they read one book at a time, and then you have certain people that read multiple books, at the same time. And then yes, I just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah,
But
I think what I'll probably do is have one book that's historical, one book that might be historical fiction or something like that. You know what I mean? I think that's probably how I'll do it from now on.
oh no, so man, can you explain? And this, and this also another question. A lot of people that comes on here, A lot of them have these you know, names, and a lot of times these names mean certain things. A lot of people that I interview, you know, are well studied, and some of them consider themselves scholars, teachers, pan-Africanists, black nationalists, and a lot of them attach themselves to African culture and history and tradition, right? And we know, being, you know, engulfed in African culture, a name means something, you know.
Mm,
So a lot of people come on here, their name, they have these elaborate names, and you know, and these names have meanings, you know, the same as my name has a meaning behind it as well, and it's centered in Africa, right?
mhm.
So can you explain your name, man?
Yeah,
Rakeem Shabazz.
yeah, for sure. So, what I will clarify first is that my name is actually Rakeem Self-Born Allah. As a 5%er, we were taught to uh, take our names from supreme mathematics and the supreme alphabet. Rakeem Shabazz is kind of like a pen name at this point, right? Like um, just what I use online, what I use on the show. But I'll explain both. So, Rakeem Self-Born Allah, it's it's a process, right? We are a lot of times with no matter what community you come from, whether it's Pan African community, which I am a Pan African, by the way, but we'll get into that later. The Kemetic community, Hebrew Israelites. A lot of times, whatever it is that your system, that whatever your system is, a lot of times we obviously choose names from that, right? And so within our system, what my name means is it's a process of man becoming God, right? Not God in a sense to where something spooked out where we're walking through walls and because a lot of people will say things like that, right?
Right, right.
But our concept of God, our concept of Allah is being supreme in all you do, right? Striving to be the best uh, father, the best husband, the best community person, the best activist, to be supreme in all things. Now, it doesn't mean that we fall short, don't fall short, right? I mean, we all do. We're human, right? From our science, God is human, right? That's how we see it. So this is so my name represents a process of self borning a law, which means before I began to study my history, before I began to get knowledge of self, who was I before then, right? What did I, what was I doing? What was my thought process like? Did I even have the concept and understanding of what it meant to be supreme, right? And that's being supreme does not mean being ruling over your brother or sister. Um, it doesn't mean anything like that. It's about self, right? It's never a competition with anyone else. It's always about being the best that you can be. So my name just represents me going through that process, continuing to go through that process, understanding that that process is never ending, right? And so just like whenever you have a child, you want to give that child a name that they can grow into. They may spend their whole lives attempting to grow into this name, but whenever you name them something righteous, it gives them a compass, right? It gives them something to be proud of, something, it gives them directions, right? And so this was me setting my compass. This was me telling myself, okay, this process is never ending. And so that's how uh, the name Rakeem Self-Born Allah was born. Now, Rakeem, I know when it comes to certain things, whether it's just within media, in the media space, a lot of that might be too long for some people, right? And then and so Facebook at one time they would not allow me to use that. So I shortened it Rakeem Shabazz because it was a name, obviously, that means royalty, a name that people are familiar with. So when people interacted with me, they kind of knew what some of my foundation was. Just a lot of times they might have thought that it was NOI, but it is 5%. And so it's just something to just it's more like I said, it's more of a pen name. My name is Rakeem Self Bonallah.
No doubt. Okay. And can you explain? Can you? Yeah. Well, let's talk about, man. You
Yeah.
say you're a 5%er, so let's talk about your experience as a 5%er,
Mhm.
and can you give us today's math? You know, I know the first person I think I was in. Well, I knew about the 5%ers or the Nation of Gods and Earths back then. That was through Busta Rhymes, and I wasn't aware of what we call conscious now. So I really didn't know what it was, and it was
Yeah.
something that he did, and
Mhm.
they tried to attack that organization, you know what I'm saying, by something that he did. I think they were trying to imply it as being a hate group. You know, anything that we do to try to liberate
Right.
ourselves, you know, they always throw those that hate group or whatever on us. So that was the first time I kind of experienced, and then I experienced it again um early on in my beginning stages of being aware. I was watching a lot of Sonetta TV, and it was a brother that was always on the corner that really didn't speak, but when he spoke, I always listened. And you know, he always, you know, that was Rob Bourne.
No, yeah.
And Rob Bourne was, you know, always talk about the day's math. So he was just talking, he was very intellectual, you know what I'm saying? So that was my first time experience. And then later on, I started getting introduced to more people that was, you know, 5%ers, you know, and so, but yeah, just kind of talk about, man, your
Yeah.
experience, man, and can you give us the day's math, man? I know y'all have every day is, uh, you know, is mathematics.
For sure, for sure. Well, my experience, it's a system to where your experience is going to be what you make it, right?
Mhm.
There's not any leaders, there's not any hierarchy. It is about taking this information, applying it to your life, applying it to your community, applying it to your family, um, being able to a mathematical process, right, in order to discern truth from falsehood. You may just like you asked me what today's mathematics is, which we'll get into in just a moment. It's a process, knowledge to born, right? It's a process that we use in order to take a thought and create a reality out of it, right? Um, and so my experience is has been great, just because this is I chose to make it great, right? I look at it just like any other science, whether we're dealing like I, where somebody's Orthodox Islam or somebody is, West African traditional religion. Your experience in a lot of cases is going to be what you make it, what you put into it. Not saying that they're not scammers out here that um, have had a tendency of spoiling the people from whatever they're into, but at the same time, if you want something bad enough, you'll in some cases take that lick and find a better solution. As far as today's mathematics is power, right? And our science, power represents the truth. Whenever you begin to think about power and whenever you begin to think about the truth, there's nothing more powerful than the truth, right? Truth is something people are killed over. Wars are fought over. It's something that is often hidden by people who are fearful. You got to ask yourself, why do people lie? People they usually lie because they are afraid of the consequences of telling the truth. Um, so whenever we deal in today's mathematics, the truth is our square that we stand on. It doesn't mean that one cannot be corrected, but it's the truth in how I see it from being able to go through that step of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and culture, right? Culture being a way of life, understanding being able to see things clear, wisdom putting my knowledge into application, and knowledge being the foundation of all things in existence. So we go through these steps, right? Um, in order to verify what the truth is. The truth just doesn't come out of nowhere. The truth takes time to get to, depending on how complex the situation is. And so, yeah, the truth is the square that we stand on. Today's mathematics is power.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and I don't know, man. I don't know. I just listening to that, man. I always wanted to try to get. I actually have a brother who actually started studying it. He's not a 5%er, but he was into, you know, today's mathematics and quoting some of those things, man. And and like I said, Rob Bourne, he kind of made it interesting for me to maybe go look at it a little bit further, man, and dig into it. I mean, but I just kind of liked it, and I looked at a lot of footage. I kind of like the camaraderie and the trying to keep everybody sharp, with the ciphers, you know what I'm saying? I think that what was, that kind of draw me,
That's what
interest.
that's what born the hip hop ciphers. The people in the circle rhyming who had the sharpest blade. That came from the 5%. I would like to respond to something too. I see brother Pure Blak says a pistol is more powerful than the truth. I mean, by that logic, we would say then a nuclear bomb is more powerful than a pistol, right? But at the same time, it's, are you willing to live and die by the truth, right? Are you willing to be killed for the truth? Are you willing to be persecuted for the truth? Anybody can do physical harm to anyone else, right? But we can't let the threat of that make us afraid to speak the truth, afraid to live in that truth and teach that truth to others. So I do understand the analogy the brother's making, but that doesn't have anything to do with how we view things in our cipher, because we don't live, at least I don't live my life on what could happen, right? If something never happened because of what I teach, then so be it. But I don't live my life in fear of that. You know what I'm saying? So when I say there's nothing more powerful than the truth, like in a world full of falsehoods, in a world full of lies, in a world full of deception, right? We can look at the news, man. American news media, everybody's opinion based, and the opinion is based on corporate funding and who they would like to lobby for, and the narrative that they would like to put out in the atmosphere, right? Think about how propaganda shapes human life globally, right? What is more powerful than that, right? If you can make a people do and think and behave the way you would like them to by simply teaching them something, right? In our case, it's usually misinformation or information that does not it's either misinformation or information designed to lead us in a certain direction. That is what in the lessons, that's what it teaches, that the 85% is they're easily led in the wrong direction. The thing about what truth being powerful and power being the truth. Brother Diallo once told me that revolution is an intellectual endeavor, right? Meaning it has to be worked out mentally, worked out on paper. What's, proper planning type of thing, right? Think about where not just our youth, because we make the misconception of saying, rap music and this leads our youth down, such and such direction, right? But it's not just the youth; it's everybody. Everybody who doesn't know any better is, and we're all to a certain extent because we all exist within this society. We're all, propaganda is so heavy that there's really nowhere that you can turn where it does not exist. Even in content and media that is labeled as anti-propaganda is often propaganda, right? It is an controlled antagonist to make it seem like there is a duality within what they're saying, right? But it limits us to these opposing ideas within this box. They own the box.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So whenever we begin to, teach the truth, the real hard truth, the radical truth, right? Like, I feel there's nothing more powerful than that, because the truth, what it say in the Bible, the truth to set you free, right? The truth is not necessarily going to get you paid. The truth is not necessarily going to give you a long life. The truth is not necessarily going to mean that you are immune to the effects of white supremacy globally and American imperialism. It doesn't mean that you can't go to prison, you can't do this, but it sets you free up here, man. It sets you free where you're not bound and led by anything else. Because if you are led constantly, continuously led by what this world tells you is right, then you are indeed a slave. You are enslaved by their idea and their way of thinking. And so to be able to break free from that, to be able to break those, mental chains, there's nothing more powerful than that. It's like a burden being released off your back. You know what I'm saying? You feel freer. You feel freer when you're able to speak the truth, regardless. Whenever you have that type of courage, I remember there was a song where I think it might be it was about a RZA, a day to God is 1,000 years or something like that, right? And he starts off talking about, it takes courage to speak the truth. Now, we're living in a time where even the people within our quote unquote conscious community are getting in on the idea of misleading our people in the name of liberation, right? We have a lot of groups here now that are teaching separatism. They're teaching our origin is somewhere other than Africa. They are teaching that we are anything but Africans, but they're doing it in the name of education and being a leader within the community. These are what we would call the 10%, the bloodsuckers of the poor, who teach the poor lies, right? Being able to, this is a form, in my opinion, right? This is a form of assimilating and into American society by teaching the people that, hey, we are going to disassociate ourselves with the rest of the diaspora. We are going to beg for the crumbs of imperialism, but we're going to do it in a way that looks like we are in opposition. We're going to do it under the name of some type of black power. And I speak the truth, and I go at them too, just as much as I go at Europeans who tend to put us in that box. Because right now, our own people doing it is probably even worse. You know what I'm saying? Because they have a lot of influence over us, And when I say us, I mean us as a collective, not me personally. So the truth is powerful. It's one reason why you can see channels that are constantly giving us real information, constantly giving us real history, real political education, real political ideology. Those channels don't grow as fast as the channels that are out here saying that we're Native Americans or that we're this and that we're that. Because at this point, we have become so deprived of the truth, right? That anyone that comes with an outlandish claim that speaks charismatically to the people will be considered a truth teller, will be considered someone who is, teaching our people what they need to hear. But
The razzle and dazzle effect is what I call
man,
it.
yeah, it is, it is. And it's sad though, because I was scrolling down YouTube the other day, and I saw like Dan Calloway, man, had dropped a video in like 4 hours. That joint had like 30,000 views, and I'm like, man, but the channels that I watch, it's nowhere close. And we have gotten so desensitized to what it means to even, being able to discern truth from falsehood. We have gotten so far away from who we are, where we will gravitate towards conspiracy theories that have no type of foundation in any type of truth. But the truth will seem boring, right? The truth will seem in some cases the truth is hurtful, right? That's why I kind of, like I told you, I had to take a break. I had to take a break.
Hey, hold on. Hey, look, Sean just trolling.
Yeah, I know. I ain't tripping. And we already discussed it, man. He coming on, Sean, man. He coming on, man.
Because that's something too that I've noticed, brother. Like with the chat, I used to get distracted because I'll be trying to talk or present or have somebody on, and we having a discussion, and or I'm on somebody else's platform and I'm looking at the chat. And the chat definitely distract you, man.
Yeah, but they cutting up in there though, man. They funny, man. You know what I'm saying? But nah, I already know. It's all love, man. We can't be, we can't be out here. I know in a lot of cases we do, because we all have egos, and we all, well, we can't be out here not focused and not being, a collective, right? Whether we are friends or not, man. But shout out to everybody. Shout out to everybody in the chat. But yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, that was. I know we kind of got off on a tangent. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good, because I mean, you kind of leading up to my next question was, and you already kind of answered it for me. You kind of already answered in the beginning when you actually started talking about you reading the Puerto Rico book, and how you trying to study, what I'm saying, the different things, or the different methods of how our ancestors utilize or trying to liberate our people across the world globally, because this one thing that transpired has affected Africans in the diaspora as well as Africans on the continent. So so you can, like I said, but do you believe, which I already know, do you believe in liberating African people worldwide or just here in the United States? And you kind of touched on that while ago with your spiel, how you was talking about how people deal with, how some of the people come in the form of Black consciousness, a Black power structure, and they teach separatists. They teach that they're everything else other than African. They're descendants from the Mayans. They're descendants from the Aztecs. They Native American. They Native Americans, or people in America or in the United States trying to separate themselves away from our brothers throughout the diaspora, even though we are suffering the same plights, but we are begging, like you said, begging from the crumbs from this colonial system in the United States. So we're trying to separate ourselves away from our brothers and say, hey, look, what I'm saying? We ain't worried about them, and what they going on. We worried about us. What can we do? So we're coming up with another political term to separate us from our brothers and sisters throughout the diaspora as well as on the continent.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't agree with separating ourselves and our liberation struggles. First, just for clarification purposes, anybody that is genuinely saying that, hey, I'm fighting for certain rights and in the reparation movement for African Americans, and I don't have a problem with that, right? That's not what the issue is. The issue is when it becomes something that is used to be divisive with the rest of the diaspora and the continent. Whenever we're talking about our liberation struggles, right? What are we liberating ourselves from? I don't think that's a question that those separatists really ask themselves, because it's evident that they want to assimilate with what we are trying to liberate ourselves from. If you look, when they're not talking about reparations, right? Which I haven't seen them talk about reparations in a long time, to be honest. But when they're not talking about reparations, um, their rhetoric sounds like white nationalist rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like alt-right rhetoric. It sounds like the illusion of American exceptionalism, right? Like, like I often hear them say, talking to immigrants, yo, why are you coming over here if your country was so, I hate that argument. The reason I hate that argument is because, in my opinion, I think it ignores the reason a lot of these nations within the global south have people that come over here in order to get money. These places, whether it's in Latin America, whether it's in Africa, these places are obviously resource rich. They often call these nations underdeveloped nations, right? This is another mind game, when in actuality they're over extracted, right? They're overly extracted nations. Um, this is why we would probably see Africom here in Africa, right? And having military bases all over the continent. This is why we would see the what has been done in the Congo, right, since Patrice Lumumba to now, because we know it's the resources in the Congo that keep this whole world going at this point, as far as technology wise, right? Um, and so we have these separatist groups that ignore what imperialism has done, ignore what colonialism has done, ignore what neo-colonialism has done. They have no idea of any type of class analysis, right? No idea of how capitalism and imperialism have attributed to these nations not having the wealth that America has. When I see like some of these separatist cats, right? The way they speak, it's, to me, it sounds like they're saying in a lot of cases, if we get a check, then everything is all forgiven, right? If we get a check, we're willing to assimilate wholeheartedly 100% into the United States of America, right? Where is the political education? Where is the understanding of geopolitics? Where is the understanding of what has been done to these nations for them to even be called third world nations, right? Um, they would like to make you think that these are just backwards people. They don't have any idea of industry. They don't have any idea of technology and science. They don't have any idea of how to run a government, right? But the people, especially in West Africa, especially in parts of Latin America, that were leaders that were leading nations into their own economic development that was not dependent on the West, that were preaching an idea of being less dependent on the West and being more dependent on self and each other, right? Um, what happens to these leaders, right? We're not even talking of, we're talking about leaders of nations, right? We have several examples of these leaders being assassinated, or dying under mysterious causes, like Hugo Chavez. Um, we can, to understand the CIA's involvement in several coups and overthrowing of different governments around the world, governments that possibly have been more socialist leaning, governments that were not dependent on, or were going to begin to remove themselves from their dependency on America. What happens to these leaders? They begin to get painted in the media as, villains, and then later on it's used to justify their killing. We've seen it happen. We've seen it over and over since the African liberation movements in the 50s.
We do that here. We do that here in the United States. We do the same thing with our military. We paint the picture, make the president or whoever is over that country the villain. You know what I'm saying? And get us all under this propaganda that if we don't go out and take out and break down the government, then this, that, and the third may happen. So I've constantly have seen that just here in the United States as well, where our military forces are doing the same thing, and we going out there and fighting, you know what I'm saying, under false pretenses.
And but that's funny, right? Because like that's what they teach in the military, is the whole concept of breaking you down to build you back up, right? I have to break your common sense down, right? I have to break your ability to analyze who the real enemy is, right? And so it's just in my opinion, it's a lack of political education. It's an expression of self-hate. Nobody said, but I will clarify this too. It's not just on our side. There are brothers and sisters in the Caribbean who speak the same way. There are brothers and sisters on the continent who speak the same way. But the thing about that is there are always going to be people that are agents of confusion, people that don't want to see, people that enjoy being a child of colonialism, right? Even, during the Jewish Holocaust, there are obviously Jewish collaborators, right? Just one of those things. There are always going to be people within oppressed communities that do the bidding of their oppressor. It doesn't matter if they're Black, white, Asian, religion, whatever it is, because they feel like that there's a benefit. It's the idea of if you can't beat them, join them, right? And so I feel like that's what a lot of these separatist groups are actually doing. It's an idea of if you can't beat them, join them, right? That's why a lot of them sound so much like alt-right people that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And they sound, anti-African, man. Like a lot of times I can't even this group, when we talk about reparation, what is it? FBA, FDA, what is this?
Hold on. I think Brother Sean asked the question. This joint here? Well, go ahead, bro.
Oh, who authored the leadership book? Okay, that might have been what he was talking about. But I was just saying, the one of the groups when you was mentioning Reparations. You know, I know one of them, they've been very vocal and on the so-called on the front line about, you know, reparations and, you know, separating themselves from other Africans in the diaspora. What's the group? FDA? I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah,
Right, you know,
yeah.
and they, you know, and they, you know, they speak with so much anti-African rhetoric, and they sound like a lot of those right wings.
Bro. So
Um,
I'm check this out. They're actually saying that they can tell if you are FBA by your hairline now, right? So that they're not. It's like, bro, it's such an unserious group, man. I don't get it, right? You know, but Tariq is charismatic, man. You know, a lot of times it's just like why a lot of our people can't leave the church. Pastor's mad charismatic. Pastor puts on a performance every Sunday.
mhm.
Even it happens in Islam as well. You know, the imams just start going in, and you know, people are gravitating gravitating towards um, you know, being entertained instead of actually uh, actually being educated. Even in I saw Tariq tweet the other day in his I guess his new movie American Maroon. You know, it's a clip where he's talking about the black people that came with Columbus, and it's like no matter it's like we are attaching ourselves with people that with colonizers. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how many I don't know how many you know black folks was on them boats with Columbus and them, but at the same time we see we see what the Spanish did when they got here, right? And if they were involved in any of that, then they would be considered race traders. Am I correct?
Mhm.
So why are we celebrating that? You know what I'm saying? But he's doing that to lead into something to say that we were always here. Um, it's just a slow pivot because he has to do this slowly because what Hidden Colors just came out. Um,
It's another one.
no, I'm saying Hidden Colors just came out with like 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And so,
Mhm.
you know, he was kind of talking about Africa and stuff. Then now he's, you know, trying to keep it FBA. So eventually he's going to, trust me, he's going to have a documentary talking about we are the real Native Americans. I already see it coming. Dude is a
Right.
grifter, man.
Yeah, man, you got to be. He had me with the razzle dazzle effect, man. At one time in my, you know, one time in my life, in my early life, you know, I got introduced to him through his Hidden Color series, man, and he kind of got me with the razzle and dazzle effect, man. At one point in time, man, but that's crazy. You said so. What is the criteria? They got to have a sharp edge line.
Look, I don't know. I guess if your shit pushed back, yo, like if your shit pushed back, you ain't one of us. I think that's what
Uh,
they saying, man.
Sean, your hair pushed back, Sean. So you probably you are FDA. You FDA member. Oh man. But man, let's get into, like I was talking to you offline before we went live, and I was telling you I'm a fan of your show, and I missed a couple of shows. I had to catch up. I think it maybe like 4 or 5, and all of it been great interviews. And you was in interviewing Brother Diablo, and which is a great interview, man. By the way, y'all go check out that interview on his channel, Wise to Dawn TV. And y'all was talking about the talented 10, and I said, well, this would be a great question for me to ask because I was kind of confused, you know, with what he said and what you were saying. It kind of made me think that, and I could be wrong, that y'all kind of had some issues with the talented 10. By the way, I got on my new Independent African Academy shirt,
Mhm.
and that is a thing is formulated after the talented 10, that actually not the talented 10, but the American Negro Academy that influenced and sprung the Independent African Academy, which influenced me to start the new Independent African Academy. And within that, you had the Talented 10 within the American, the American Negro Academy, right?
Mhm.
And those members consist of Carter G. Wilson, consist of Paul Dunbar, consist of Alex Cromwell, consist of W.E.D. Du Bois, and so many other greats, right?
Mhm.
And the Talented 10. Now, I have an issue with the agency over the word Talented 10. Like, and I'm gonna get into it, but the Talented 10, um, it's not a form of just a group of talented 10 men or women, because you did have talented 10, the men and women.
Mhm.
And when you looking at the talented 10, we have no agency over the word. That's the only thing that I have a disagreement with. And what I mean by we have no agency over the word is the same reason I don't use the word ATR in the more African traditional religion or African spirituality is those words, we don't own those words. Those words was introduced to us, and some of our people took those words and popularized that word and took that word even further, right? So, like, so we with Kimoyo, that's why I wrote the book Beautiful Lessons about Kimoyo, and explaining my difference, and even going into what we call African traditional religion or African spirituality, right?
Mhm.
And Talented 10 was coined and phrased by white liberal Christians, or white, or just white northern liberals, or white northern paleontologists, right? So they created that coin. When you go and you look up the American Baptist Home Missionary Society, this is a society that actually founded what we call the HBCUs. When you go back and do your research on how HBCUs form, the American Baptist Home Missionary Society always popped up. So after doing 1865, the American Baptist Home Missionary Society, which is a Christian society of Northerners who wanted to establish churches and spread the gospel. And then this was in 1863, and then 1823, and then 1865, you had a lot of people that was a part of the American Baptist Home Missionary Society who was abolishers, who wanted to now implement education as a part of it, not only spreading Christianity and establishing churches worldwide, but now educating the new emancipated Africans in 1865.
Yeah.
So they created this term called Talented 10.
Yeah.
And everybody
It's a
that's
good book
familiar,
on that, by the way.
yeah, and everybody that's familiar with W.E.D. Du Bois know that W.D. Du Bois wrote an essay, and
Mhm.
yes, sir, I have that book, yes, sir, and created an essay, or wrote an essay called The Talented 10, and it is in the same essence of what the American Baptist Home Missionary Society wanted to do, and that was to educate
Mhm.
Black people and to establish a Christian curriculum or Christian standard. So they believed that through high education, this would bring the new emancipated Africans out of the plights that they was going through, right? So he adopted that, and the American, not the American, but the American Negro Academy adopted this. It became an ideology, and it wasn't just a form of 10 Black men, as some people may think, or an elite of people. It was these people who would be educated, right? Because they believe with this ideology, this talented ideology, which formulated the work, which formulated each one teach one. Because before, between 61 63, it was illegal for Blacks to read and write. So there was a lot of illiterate Black people coming out of slavery.
Yeah.
So they believed in reading, writing, producing books. And at this time, we was not able to go into their institutions, you know what I'm saying, for higher learning. So whether we was able to learn these things, and we did through the American Baptist Home Missionary Society, where they open up their churches, which that's a whole nother spiel. But they believed in this Title 10 ideology that higher education would bring Black people out of the plight, and it would make more intellectual Black men and women that will make phenomenal Black men and women. So the Title 10 became an ideology, the Title 10 ideology that the American Negro Academy adopted, as well as the new, not the new, but the independent African Academy adapted, such as when you get to a Dr. Ben, you get to a John Henry Clark, you get to a Aisha Hilliard, when you get to the independent, which was this institution was influenced by the American Negro Academy. So my things, I wanted to know what was some of your issues, if you had any issues with dealing with the Talented 10, other than we have no agency over the word because we didn't create that word. It was created by white Northern Christians and white Northern liberals.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not in agreement with the idea of talented 10, the talented 10th, but I will say that I am a huge fan of the works of William Edward Burghardt Du Bois. It's he's one of the, as we saw, he had a great evolution within the way he thought, from, like you said, the 1903 essay in the Negro Problem book, where he first began to speak about the talented 10th, and then later on in his life being a Pan-African communist in Ghana, right? So we see that he evolved in his thinking. But so issue that I have is, whenever you, and first I think we have to add a little bit of context, where this was 8 years after Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Compromise speech, which ingratiated Washington as the de facto leader of the Blacks by teaching an ideology of acceptance and assimilation without agitation, right? He was definitely not for being an agitator, but he did do things on the low that that were really great for our people. But when it comes to the talented 10th, to think that there's a small group of Black academics that have the ability to lead our people into liberation, I think is an error. Whenever we look at our academics now, right? A lot of times it's very easy for the Black academia class to be a buffer between white society and Black people, right? Meaning white society can fund Black academia and pick out its favorite academics, such as people like today, I would say the white society's favorite Black academic is Henry Louis Gates, right? Henry Louis Gates has been extremely and vehemently opposed to any form or idea of Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, and has even been called out by some of his own faculty members for how he portrays Africa in his DVDs, right, or his PBS specials. It's not, it's funny. It's not having such a. We look at places like Tulsa, Oklahoma. We look at places like Durham, North Carolina. These are two places that were considered Black Wall Street at one time. What happens is we only hear the good parts of Black Wall Street. As far as how many businesses we had on a, three block radius, 3 street radius, the thriving communities that we created, right? But there was still class agitation going on within our communities. There was still classism that was going on in our communities, where the elites of those communities in those Black Wall Streets began to slowly make themselves the buffer between Black society and white society. It happened in Durham, North Carolina. A lot of times when we talk about Black Black Wall Street in Durham, one of the things that happened that was the last straw that killed Black Wall Street in Durham was they built a freeway to it. I feel a freeway through it. I mean, but before that, there was class issues that were developing. The Black bankers, the businessmen who created great wealth within these communities begin to act as the voice and head of these communities. And it was not always in line with what the people wanted. I feel like the talented tenth is the idea was a form of elitism. Booker T. Washington obviously taught that, we must get a technical skill and a vocational skill. And Du Bois, within that talented tenth essay, talks about if that's all we did, all we would become was artisans and not men. I'm paraphrasing. But liberation is a collective thing. It is not the job of people with PhDs to liberate those without, right? Everybody has a part to play. Everybody has a part to play. Your part does not necessarily have to have anything to do with academia. Whatever your trade, whatever your skill is, how can you use it towards the upliftment and liberation of your people? But to think that 10% of those people within American society, within the African American community, can lead the rest of us in the quote unquote promised land, I think is an idea that we can see now in real time would not work. Who would be the talented 10th today? Would it be Obama? Would it be Kamala Harris? Would it be Black faces on imperialism? Right? Who would be the talented 10th of today? And so we have to, we're in a, it's, I wouldn't trust it. You know what I'm saying? With that said, I am a huge fan of Du Bois. I feel like he studied his way out of that idea. Whenever he began to start dealing more in socialist ideas, and even whenever he joined the Communist Party, it was the reason being is because understanding more and more that to be African is to be communal in your approach. Having an idea of a talented 10th, in my opinion, is the opposite of a communal approach to our problems, right? It's handing over the power to a group of educated individuals that may or may not have your best interests at heart. Whenever we look at what is the saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Think about how much power that would be for us to hand over the reins of and the direction of where the Black community is going to go to the most talented academics in our society, right? Most of them are not radical in their thinking. Most of them are assimilationists at the end of the day. So where are they going to lead us to, right? And Du Bois was not an assimilationist in the manner that Booker T. Washington was, right? Du Bois is, obviously buried in Ghana. But we're talking about in 1903 here. We're, what, 20 years removed from Reconstruction, right? We are at this point trying to figure out what it is as a collective we can do to get out of the situation that we are in. So it's not a knock on Du Bois. It's what you're seeing is trial and error in real time. We often see people like Dr. King. What would Dr. King have been if he would not have been assassinated? What would Malcolm have been if he would not have been assassinated? Right? In this case, we see what can happen when someone is allowed the ability to evolve intellectually, right? It's having an idea of a talented tenth to being a communist and a Pan-Africanist. From being head of the NAACP to what he died as is a show of being able to work it out intellectually amongst yourself and your peers. If you would have asked him when he died, what he thought about the idea of a talented tenth, I think he would absolutely shun it, because it's not in line with his ideas of communalism that he died with. Whenever we look at today and where we are as a society, it is extremely dangerous for us to think that we are powerless and we need PhDs to lead us. These people, a lot of times, are race traders who are trying to be race and class traders, right? They're trying to benefit and make money and keep their standing. A lot of these academics just want tenure, right? They don't want liberation, right? Liberation is not always a beautiful thing. As Malcolm said, you tell me a revolution that eventually does not get bloody. A lot of these academics is not getting bloody, right? This is why people like Walter Rodney are my favorite quote unquote warrior scholars. Like I said, he coined the term guerrilla intellectualist because he was out with the people. Like if you read Grounding with My Brothers, like he didn't want to deal with those academics that were teaching at the University of West Indies with them. That ain't what he wanted to deal with. He wanted to go out and see where the people were, right? What are the people on? What are the people saying? Just that idea alone of how he felt about the academics that he knew, that he worked with, that were his colleagues, right? Who were extremely talented, right? But being talented and wanting complete liberation for your people are two different things. And so there's no way in hell in 2023 I would trust my livelihood to the academics that the West has propped up. Because a lot of these niggas are just puppets and black faces on what the agenda that white society is okay with pushing, right? You're not ever going to see the scholars who are radicalized, the scholars who talk about the issues with capitalism, the scholars who talk about imperialism. You're not going to see them being pushed to the forefront by anyone. You're going to see the ones that are like, let's vote our way out of liberation. let's study our way out of liberation. You're not going to you're not going to see the ones that are saying, let's organize our way out of liberation. You're not going to see much of them, because that's where the real power and the real threat is. Obviously, understanding that our plight is international is another, right? Um, a lot of academia still has the idea of American exceptionalism. They still think America is like like people outside of America are they have fought they have gone they bear witness to the illusion that everyone outside of America is a step behind America, right? um they have fully they have put themselves fully within this institution and with the confines of their idea of what it means for us to be free, that they're not capable of leading us anywhere, right? And so in today's time, especially, I would say I definitely don't agree with that idea. But again, it's not a knock on the boys who graduated from Fisk University and HBCU, like you were just talking about, right? It's not a knock on him. It's actually a way that you could see the evolution in a man's thinking, that constantly studied who he was, his condition of his people, and how to break free and how to liberate, right? Never said that he had all the answers, um, but he was not with the assimilation tactics that Booker T. Washington was was kicking at that time. Like again, the first Talented Tenth essay came out 8 years after the Atlanta Compromise, right? So we're
1903.
yeah we're at a time, and people don't know what the Atlanta Compromise was. Booker T. Washington got up there and made himself the spokesperson of the blacks, right, to white people by what was now looked at, and what is now looked at obviously is some shucking and jiving. I mean, if we're going to be honest, this is not to take away anything from Booker T. Washington as well. It's a complex history, right? But it is, I would say, it would be extremely dangerous in nowadays to put our um, to put our liberation struggles in the hands of the talented 10th academics in the United States and the West.
So man, I think man, we you know for the sake of it, I kind of wanted to make the show like an hour and a half, and we could kind of go back and forward, um, you know, on this subject. I think maybe one day, man, we could, kind of, continue to have a healthy discussion on the talented 10, the
Mhm.
ideology behind the W. Du Bois, man. Um, dang, but yeah, let's get into your your platform, man. You have a platform for people that may not know called Wise the Dome TV.
Yes.
And what was the purpose and the motivation behind creating it, and how do you determine whom you are going to interview, man?
Oh yeah. It's a show dedicated just to having constructive builds, not no debates, just constructive builds in order to teach and educate the people, with people of all different types of ideologies, as long as those ideologies aren't detrimental or harmful to our people. I started because I had kind of ingratiated myself with the independent hip hop scene, and I began to build relationships with a lot of indie hip hop artists. And so I was like, man, all of the the interview platforms that all they do is go after obviously big names. They're not really shedding light on dope MCs that are doing their thing on an underground level. I'm not talking about people that's not putting in the work, but MCs that got a following but could use a little bit of light. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to be able to have them on the show, interview them. I also wanted to be able to interview people that I knew that I have a lot of respect for as far as their capacity to convey information and things of that nature. And so it was just something I wanted to do. Then it just started to grow, and it's and obviously too, this is as somebody who reads a lot, right? You gotta be able to get the information out and talk to people about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
kind of be burning you up. You know what I'm saying? If you just leave it there dormant. And so it was just something that I like to have these discussions, man. That's like how Malcolm talked about. Um, you know, if he could, he would sit around and talk history all day. You know what I'm saying? It's just something that I enjoy doing. Um, Through the show, I've been able to, connect with brothers and sisters and that I didn't know previously, right? And build relationships and friendships and working relationships with them. Doing the show got me here on this show. You know what I'm saying? So, and I was already like I said, a fan of this and, the Mossy Warrior platform, and much respect to you guys as well, man, because um, y'all definitely put out great content, and it's informational, it's truthful, and it's not in a manner to where you're talking above the people's head. You know what I'm saying? It's to the people and it's direct. So I definitely salute y'all for that.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. It's yeah, man. You this your first have you this your first of some I know you interview a lot of people. Is this your first time being interviewed by somebody, or you been interviewed by some people in the past?
This would be my fourth. If anybody ever wants to go see any of my previous interviews, there I made a playlist and linked them on my channel as well, so you can go check them out. But um, yeah, I haven't done many, so I definitely appreciate anytime I have the opportunity to come on somebody's platform and build. So again, thank you.
Yeah, man, no problem. I had to get you on, man. Like I said, reached out. What maybe about? I reached out back in December. I think it was one. Was it
Yeah, yeah,
December?
yeah, yeah. By
Mhm.
December. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah.
But
I had. Oh, go ahead. My bad.
no, I was just gonna say, it's like the best time was now, man. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I'm
No,
saying?
most definitely. I was kind of still up in the air because like I said, I hadn't did nothing. It had been maybe 2 or maybe 3 months, man. I was, I had kind of got extremely busy, but I kind of, like I said, kind of lost the passion a little bit because, man, we've been doing this, man, for a long time. Like I'm back and forth. I was back and forth
Hmm.
from this channel to the Mossy channel. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And then kind of eased off the Mossy a little bit and kind of started with my brothers over here with the research team that we created to try to build this up. You know what I'm saying? Just like we did the Mossy, over there, man. And but yeah, man. I like I said, I didn't know you was doing, but hold on, but what you didn't you I wanted to, what is the criteria for you to say, hey, man, I wanna, I want this brother to be on my platform. I want to interview this brother, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um,
I haven't just really like written down what the exact criteria is. A lot of times it's just from maybe having a conversation with somebody online or seeing a video that they've done somewhere else.
mhm.
Um, Being a fan of their work, if they're an author, if they're a professor, being a fan of their work. And so it's just kind of like the more I familiarize myself, you know, with people and what they're doing, and I guess I'll just, a lot of times I'll just reach out, especially depending on what I've been studying at the moment. I'll kind of reach out to, like, if I've been studying, let's say, if I've been studying capitalism or something, right, or socialism, then I'll reach out to brothers and sisters that I know that are socialist or communist or Marxist. If I've been studying, you know, if I'm like whenever I was studying Ifa and wanted to learn more about that tradition, I got been on a couple times, you know. So it's kind of like that, right? You
Okay.
know,
Okay, it's what you kind of like, what you kind of dealing with at that
yeah,
particular time.
yeah. In a lot of cases, in some cases it's not. In some cases, but I think I kind of do it naturally. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So in a lot of ways, that's exactly what it is.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Like I said, I was listening. This is my last question, man. I have, man. Like I said, I seen where you had made a post. I think it might have been about a month ago, and
Mhm.
I didn't know you was, you was into the, into the music. I know you to interview quite a few people on your channel, that does music. One of my favorite is Olu Ashe that you had on there,
Yeah, I
and
saw him on your show. Saw him on your show as well. Dope
yeah,
interview. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
appreciate it,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
he's a great rapper, by
Oh
the way.
yeah, most definitely, man. I think I had banged his last CD, man. I say too. I think I banged it for about 6 months.
Facts, me too,
Yeah,
man.
that's how I
Me
was in my
too.
car, man.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, but I seen you made a post where you saying you got a project coming up soon, and then you had a list of
Hmm.
features, man. Um,
Yeah.
on
So
there, man.
yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
what I did, I had a lot of MCs on the show. So I'm not a rapper myself or anything like that, right? You ain't gonna hear me spitting no bars and nothing like
Oh,
that.
okay.
But what it is I I started building these relationships with these rappers, and I was like, man, they dope. And so I got with the producer who produced for a lot of the rappers that I began to build relationships with, and we just kind of curated an album. We didn't do it in a way where it's like a compilation. It's like, okay, such and such sounds good on this beat. Such, this person sounds good on this. It's kind of like how we kind of curated the way a DJ Khaled would, right?
Mhm.
Um, that's kind of the format and the formula. So it's not going to come off and sound like a compilation where one person has one song, one person has another song, one person has another song. It's going to sound like these artists were in the studio together creating this. You know what I'm saying? So it was just something that I wanted to do, man. I always wanted to put a music project together, and um, I'm not rapping, so I was like, everybody blessed me with a verse, man. I got probably about 25 MCs on here. You know, B Dot from URL and
Mm.
Backwoods, Sweetie, I'm God, a lot of great MCs, man. And so Oluwache is on there as well.
That's
Um, yeah, and so I don't know, it's just been fun, man. I told myself, you only got one life, man. You might as well do the things that you want to do. You know what I'm saying? And so it's always something that I always wanted to do. So started putting it together around last year sometime.
Okay, you about finished with the project, man, or
Yeah,
you gotta push?
it's probably about 95% complete.
Okay, no doubt, no doubt. And the project is also called Wise the Dome, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay,
It'll be on all DSPs.
okay, for sure, for sure, for sure. I'm definitely gonna check it out when it come on, man. Like I said, I looked at the list of features, and I'm rocking. Some of them I'm not familiar with, and some of them
Mhm.
I'm familiar with, man. So I'm definitely, man, ready to check it out, man. I be trying to, balance it. I be
Yeah,
trying to get that. I at times I do listen to
yeah, me too.
the hood ratchet, but
Yeah,
I always try to, balance it, man. And I be glad, I'd be glad through Facebook and Instagram introduced to some of these underground, aware artists or conscious artists or whatever they would call themselves. Where I get that balance, man. Yeah, man. But yeah, man, I definitely, bro, appreciate you coming on the platform, man. And they say, man, when you having fun, man, time flies, bro. We've been on an hour and 33 minutes and 37 seconds. I always try to make the show an hour, hour and a half, man. We used to do these long shows, and sometimes it do get drawn out. But I try to make these interviews, an hour, hour and a half, and I appreciate you, man, for coming on. You more than welcome to come back on the platform, man, whenever you get ready, man. Like I say, everybody that comes on the platform, man, you family now, man. Whether you like it or not, man, you family, man. For people that want to reach out to you, or what's your Facebook, your Instagram, what's your YouTube platform, and some of the things that you got coming up, man. Let us know some of the things you got.
Yeah, for sure. Social media is always going to be Rakeem Shabazz, so you'll be able to find me there. As far as shows, man, we got some pretty dope stuff ahead. Come to the channel and find out, you know what I'm saying? But once again, I definitely appreciate the time. Appreciate being on the platform. I'm just trying to, just play my part, man. You know what I'm saying? And be able to show a form of unity with my people and be able to discuss different ideas with my people. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
For sure, man. You definitely doing your part, man. For people that, go check him out on Why Is the Dome TV on YouTube, man. There's some great interviews on there, man. I'm just going to warn you before you go on there, though. If you into the antics and the disrespectful stuff, then that's definitely not going to be the channel for you. But if you want some real information, you know what I'm saying, civilized dialogue and civilized discussion amongst two men or men and woman, man, go check out Why Is the Dome TV. I like that name too, man. I like that Why Is the Dome, so I like that as well, man. Again, I appreciate you, man, for coming on and letting me interview you. I appreciate you, man, for freeing up some of your time, man, because all of our times are valuable, and I try not to waste anybody's time, man. So again, I appreciate you, man. This was a great interview, I must say, man. And y'all, if y'all hadn't subscribed, please subscribe to Kofi Piesie TV. If you hadn't subscribed to Why Is the Dome TV, please go over there and subscribe to my brother Why Is the Dome TV and check out some of those great interviews, man, that he have over there, man. And on that note, I'm gonna say peace, Black African power, man, and we'll see y'all when we see y'all, man. We out of here.
Peace.
I'm gonna play my brother.
Yeah. Man. You know it. It's so. Shout out to United Front. Yeah. Hey. Cognitive dissonance, colonized indigenous minds, bodies, innocence, European participants, Jesus no deliverance, rebellion with militants, culturally different, rape, murder incidents, justice no equivalence, lyrical abolitionists, ancestral reverence, soul music the resonance, mind sharp like elephants, melanin glow, elegance, imperial pestilence, governmental negligence, miracle black excellence, manipulate the elements, formulate with eloquence, bars of social relevance, United Snakes decadence, African-centered preference, my people set the precedence, MCE the delegates, go and check the references, get it out the sediment, evaporate impediments, this shit excrement, our story indefinite, saying cover by increments, body temple instrument, tuned into the infinite, over.